Mr. Issa of California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General, a couple of questions. You're familiar in the National Defense Authorization Act of late last year that applies now, that it provides sanctions against anyone supporting or engaging in industrial espionage in cybersecurity. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm aware of that.
Now, let me just go through quickly a couple of questions. North Korea has no independent access to the Internet. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So they're entirely dependent on a single strand, so to speak, of IP that comes from China. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
And do you happen to know what the bandwidth of that is, if it's publicly available?
I do not know off the top of my head, sir. We can get that for you.
For argument's sake, let's call it the equivalent of what one home has from Cox or Comcast. So they have a range of IPs provided by China, as though they were being provided by Comcast here in the District of Columbia, one line coming in from China. Is that correct?
In essence, sir, that is correct.
So, two questions. First of all, do you have high confidence today that North Korea participated in the Sony espionage and or any other espionage in the last year?
Based on the evidence that's been provided by the intelligence community and the law enforcement community regarding attribution, I have confidence in their conclusion, sir.
So, pursuant to the NDAA, you now have the ability to have sanctions based on that, correct? Beyond financial. I mean, sanctions are a broader term.
Agreed.
However, the NDAA said provide sanctions against anyone supporting or engaging. Wouldn't it inherently be said that since the only way North Korea had the ability to do this was through a route provided by the People's Republic of China, that in fact, mainland China, China itself, has in fact supported espionage? Reasonable assertion by the American people. Couldn't have done it without China. China gives them the lifeline. As we know, China monitors all of its Internet transactions. It doesn't have a true open Internet per se. China, in fact, had to know what you know. Isn't that correct?
You know, at this point, sir, and thank you for that question, I do not know what China knew at the time.
Do they know now? Have we directed to them the knowledge that we have sufficient so they know that, in fact, their lifeline to the Internet was, in fact, engaged in espionage, in other words, supporting industrial espionage by North Korea?
Sir, we have shared our information with the Chinese Computer Emergency Response Team. We've had telephone conversations with them as well, and we continue to exchange information regarding this incident.
So based on that, my question, which goes to the very heart of not the sanctions on a country that is so isolated that the only thing we know for sure is that their people are at least 6 inches shorter than people in the South. In fact, since sanctions on North Korea are extreme and have not worked because they simply do not care enough about their people to relieve their suffering, and since the government of China now knows that their lifeline was used to conduct industrial espionage, are we and will we hold China responsible to be an active participant in preventing this in the future, or should we, in fact, this committee, consider that under the NDAA, China would then, by supporting espionage, by not taking action, be, in fact, held accountable in the future?
I would have to defer to my colleagues for that question.
Well, we don't have a China desk person, but Mr. Glazer, you're close enough. Do you agree that, in fact, if another country, anywhere, provides direct support, and the Internet line is by definition direct support, that, as we like to say, they either have to be part of the solution or they're part of the problem?
Thank you, Congressman. I wouldn't want to opine under the statute, but I could say that, at least from a Treasury Department perspective, we're fully committed to holding entities within China responsible, and we've demonstrated that we're willing to target entities within China.
Pursuant to China, the government of China providing a line to the government of Korea that has been used in industrial espionage?
Again, Congressman, I don't think I'm familiar enough with the details of all the facts and intelligence on that particular line of questioning. All I can say is that we have demonstrated that with respect to the authorities that we have, we're prepared to use them with respect to parties that need to be held accountable.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman,
It's a very good point, and it's one that in dialogue with Beijing, I certainly think Mr. Issa should be explored, because you're right, that line obviously has been used. And I think the other consideration is the fact that some of those involved in the hacking in the past, maybe not currently, but in the past, had training in Beijing, as some have training in Moscow. And so I think reminding Mr. Glazer of the necessity of discussing this with those who might enable this kind of activity is a good point for you to raise. Go ahead. You have the floor.
I was only sort of befuddled that the general who now has authority over cybersecurity, ultimately in the last days of last year, we transferred principal authority over cybersecurity to Homeland Security. So the general's here. He can provide Mr. Glazer with the questions and answers as to whether or not China, one, government line, two, North Korea perpetrated this, and three, the real question, which is, if that lifeline remains in effect and another attack occurs or is occurring as we speak, how do we deal with China? Obviously, it's beyond the scope of this hearing, but I think it's an important one of, will China be part of the solution actively, or are we to continue basically dealing with sanctions over a country that seems almost immune to sanctions because they're almost immune to outside hard currency, except when they sell conventional weapons and or nuclear secrets and use that to gain hard currency. That's where the challenge of how do we get China as an open partner, and that's why I had that line of questioning. I thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you.